What's up, everyone? Billy here from Box Collectibles, bringing you another toy review. And today we are looking at the Omegamax Cycle and Omegamax Megazord from Power Rangers SPD. This is the personal Megazord of the Omega Ranger, the 6th Ranger from Power Rangers SPD. This is the form that it makes its debut in the show, and then it transforms into its Megazord form. But there's a lot to go over with this Zord because it does a lot. This is in celebration of Power Rangers SPD's 20th anniversary. If you've been watching the show or have watched the show, it's just something for like the nostalgia of SPD, which was 20 years ago, which is crazy to say. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot to get into, so let's go ahead and check it out. And so here we have the Zord form, or already, seeing the Omegamax Cycle. It is just a gigantic motorcycle, which I think is pretty cool. It has a way to be used as a motorcycle, which you see in the show and toy form pretty successfully, I'd say, with how old Megazords weren't superposable. But yeah, before we go ahead and look at that, let's compare it to the Delta Runners. It is pretty big comparatively to these, as is like not every other Zord, because the Delta Flyers, the SWAT Flyers, are not as big comparatively. But yeah, so there's that. And then just for a kind of out of frame comparison, or maybe we'll be able to get it in frame. There we go. This is the Delta Command Base. So they're all here. This is all the Zords up to this point when Omega Ranger makes his debut. And yeah, they do all look great together. You know, the solid white color scheme throughout, a lot of reds, blues, whites, and then each Ranger's main color is on here. Omega Ranger is a white Ranger, so his is already there. But then like Shadow Ranger, the black on here shows off for that, and then the Delta Runners show off theirs as well. But yeah, they do look great together, especially if you're collecting all of them. I do suggest just getting all of them, so you can have them all next to each other on your shelf, because they look great together. All right, and like I said, there is another form of playability for the Omegamax Cycle with the Delta Squad Megazord, where it can combine in this mode where the Delta Squad Megazord just basically rides it, because it's a motorcycle. So yeah, and it does it in the show, and it's pretty funny in the show when they take over, or not take over, but like hop onto it. But here in toy form, they have to do some neat little tricks. So you want to take the legs, and they plug in down here on this thing, which matches up with this. So it slots in like that, and then you take the 3 like so, and so now you have it looking like there's feet there. For the Delta Squad to come in, you want to go ahead and get it like this so it can sit into its seat, and its legs slot in just like it does to 2 and 3, and then it clips in like so, and boom, there you have it, riding a motorcycle. And I think this is, like, for the time especially, considering this is like one of the first times that they've done a mode like this between two Megazords, it's pretty successful. They do it again in like Beast Morphers or Go Busters with the Lion, which America didn't get, but besides the point. And that is obviously years after, so they have figured out a different way to do it. But here I think it does it pretty well. The legs kind of do look silly where they're at, but yeah, you can turn the sounds on, and then go ahead and press the button. There are light pipings down here, which you'll be able to see in the Delta Max Megazord. But yeah, I think that's pretty neat. And as for transforming it into the Omegamax Megazord, there's a lot of parts moving that happens. It's not like a transformation as more so like taking everything apart and putting it back together, but it does make it a very unique Megazord because there's a lot of parts here. Because once it combines with the Delta Squad Megazord to become Delta Max Megazord, it's just like a lot of new armor. And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and get started. First, you want to take off these fists and this chest piece. And then go ahead and take these parts off because they're going to be shoulder coverings. And then take the legs off. Like so. And then this can just turn around. That actually stays. And then also these will fold down because they'll become arms. But then we want to take this apart. There's a clip here that I kind of undid when I was taking it off, but it just hides away. And then you'll fold the feet down. They're going to be big flat feet. And then while you have it like this, there's another tab here that'll help for stability later once you have the bigger combination. It's not much needed now in this form, but for that, it makes it easier. And then we'll go ahead and plug these in here. And then onto the chest go these two fists. They have pegs here that just peg into these holes here. And then we take these. They have certain sides they go on because they have this like clip here. So this one goes over here like that. And then this one goes over here. And then this piece for now goes down here on the bottom. And it has two holes that it will sit in and then also clip in down here. So that just stays down there. And then you reveal the head, put the little visor up, and reveal the fists, or hands, I guess, because they're not fists, they're open. But yeah, there's the Omegamax Megazord. This thing is pretty hefty compared to the Delta Squad Megazord, but I think it had to be so they could make the armor mode for the Delta Max Megazord. There's a lot of Max and Delta and Omega. Too uniform. But yeah, standard posability. The arms does have the head movement, so you can do that. It does have two weapons, which are these blades. That are down here hidden. And you can actually do its finisher move, which requires some more transforming. But put the visor on, we'll take the arms off, and then we'll need to close up these so we can lay down the feet. It would be better if they were flat, but so we don't have to do too much. It can just go like that. But then the arms, there are peg holes here. Those can just slide in like so, and you can do the finisher where it goes like that, I believe. But it just does but it rolls because of the wheel on the chest, so it's fully functional to do so. Alrighty, and let's do some size comparisons. Obviously, with the Delta Squad Megazord, as you can see what I meant by it being big, it is a head taller than the Delta Squad. So it's not really like show accurate because I think this is smaller than this in the show, but or at least very close to the same height. But here it is way bigger. While I have these two out, I can bring in the Delta Command Megazord to show how big that is. Way bigger, as we did in this review with this. But those are the three main Megazords up to this point if you are following along in the series. And yeah, it just gets bigger, I guess, as it goes, or you know, got big, then down here. Then it'll go back. But yeah, that's what the whole SPD Megazord family looks like. And then for one last size comparison, here's Goodburn, our latest White Ranger. Those scale well together. I think they're the same height, so it's nice to see two different White Ranger Zords next to each other in a similar manner where Goodburn becomes armor for the main Megazord. That's what the Omegamax cycle does. Alright, so I went ahead and got it back in this mode because it's kind of how it happens in the show, where the Delta Squad Megazord is riding on the Omegamax cycle, and then it transforms and combines. Everything here will come apart. This will be able to stay locked in, and yeah, it should work out very smoothly, ideally. But first off, you'll want to take off 4 and 5, making 4's arm go back like that. We can set them off to the side for now. Then we'll want to take off these because these are going to become the arms. And we'll want to go ahead and take apart that. Take off the front. Go ahead and separate the legs. Do that clip thing that I told you about. Stand it up. Flatten the feet. Flip these things out for stabilization. Like so. And then from here we take this off. These fold down because they're going to become like boosters on the back. And then we can start plugging stuff on. So we got the arms. They'll just clip on like so. We can take the fists. Those will be last. But we'll go ahead and put the chest on like that. And then 5 goes over here because that's the side it was on. And then 4 goes over here because that's the side it was on. And then we can go ahead and plug the backpack on. It uses these clips here. And then this right here will get onto the Delta Runner 1's spoiler right here. Like so. And then we can go ahead and give the fist. Peg goes into down here. Like that. And then we got to give it its new head. Boom. And then for flare, there's the Delta Max Megazord. Now, I think this is probably one of the best like 6 Ranger combos because it completely like changes the look of both mech. Obviously, you know, it has the cars hanging on it, but that just adds to the aesthetic of like the I don't know, like it has big arms, which is funny. But then it's just stature wise. Oh. Stature wise, it's just it's a nice looking mecha on your shelf. And then also it just looks nice because the Zords look great. There's nothing else to really compare it to, so you can get an idea of its height. There's the Delta Command Megazord again. So you can see that compared to that, it is a lot bigger, but still not as big as the Delta Command. All right, and before we get to the end, one last extra thing. If you are a fan of my content, you know that I am big on, you know, playing with your toys and figuring out fun combinations with them. So this is actually something that I did when I was younger, when I originally owned the SPD Zords, that I figured out just by like playing with them. It's not like something like crazy combination, but it does oddly fit specifically, like it works out too well, if you get what I mean. But you know, there's not an Ultra Zord in SVD, but I always wanted there to be. So like, what if there was? You can take the Delta Command Megazord in the crawling formation and the Delta Max cycle with the Delta Squad Megazord on top of it and put them together. So what you need to do is go ahead and open up the top here. And like I said, this isn't something like crazy, but it just fits too well. And there it is, the SPD Ultrazord. And zoom out a tiny bit. There we go. But yeah, like I said, it just fits too well. It's like kind of secure when you have the cannon things up here. It like locks it in almost, not like a click, but it's not moving. But yeah, there it is, just a giant motorcycle crawler bike thing. Obviously with the scale in the show, this thing is massive, so this wouldn't work in the show, but for your shelf, it's a way to put them all together, kind of like the Zeo Ultrazord like crawler mode where everything's just on top of Pyramidas. All right, and that's been it for this one, everyone. Thanks for watching. My final thoughts on the Omegamax Megazord and Omegamax cycle is that it's just one of the best Zords, especially for 6 Rangers. Like, this toy adds so much playability to the line, like I showed you in the review, with the different combinations and different stuff that you can do. Overall, the SPD toy line itself is very playable, like has so much playability that makes it an all-star toy line. Just all the different like gimmicks that you get for each Zord, like each individual Zord has something that you can do, is awesome. And I think that it's something that would be great to look back on to develop new toys in the future, like having each individual Zord have something so integral to the Megazord in design and then in like functionality and playability. I do think that's something that is being added back with things like Gojuger, where all the Zords are weapons, and so they all have their own playability and whatnot. But everything being able to combine is an important thing to me for a good toy line. But yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments if you are watching SPD, if you like the Omega Ranger introduction where he shows up randomly and just stunts on everybody. But yeah, thanks for watching.